This week we're going to talk about Yitzhak. Now we're picking up in Genesis chapter 26, and what we find when we start off in this chapter, there is a famine in the land. Now this is not something that when we read through the scriptures, it only happens once or twice. I mean, throughout the lives of the patriarchs, the matriarchs, they each experienced famine. They all had severe things in their life, but what are we going to focus on in this part of it? We're going to see how Yitzhak overcame the famine, and what we really learn is that it's really not anything that he did different than what anybody else around him was doing. What we find is that Yahweh had blessed him for the sake of covenant. Yahweh had blessed him. What we read is Yitzhak said, okay, what am I going to do? There's a famine in the land. Do I go back down to Mitzrayim, or do I stay here? What's going on? What should I do here? And Yahweh told him, stay where you are, and I will bless you. And I will bless you. And he said, I will do all these blessings for you, all these, because Abraham obeyed my voice. He kept my Torah. He did all of these things. And we know that he had this tremendous relationship with Yahweh, and he was called a friend of Yah. But what we have in this parashah is Yitzhak had the benefits of covenant extended from Abraham. So what we learn is that when Yahweh blessed Abraham, he says, I'm going to bless you and your descendants and those that will be joined in with you. See, so remember he said, through you all the nations of the earth will be blessed, right? So this blessing extends beyond Abraham. And we find Yitzhak in a time of famine, he still plants and still does, like we said, like what everybody else is trying to do. However, he was blessed. And Yahweh blessed him in all of these things. And he had, we're going to get into the story about him digging the wells, but he had water when he needed it. And as you know, living in the desert, you need water. I mean, even just normal circumstances, you need water. Now consider there is a famine. How much more do you need water? I mean, water is life, especially in the desert. If you don't have water, you're not going to live very long. Okay, you're not going to grow anything, and your animals, they're going to die, and you need water to live. So this was something that wasn't just extra or additional. This was something that was a necessity of life. And when you get down to a situation where if Yahweh has blessed you in that, and then what happens if others around you who are looking at what Yahweh is blessing you with and saying, well, how come I can't have that? Instead of maybe joining with and being part of a blessing and joining with one another and helping, and can you imagine if Yahweh blessed Yitzhak and he would bless all that Yitzhak did, and if he joined with all these other people, then I would imagine whatever city or region that Yitzhak lived in would be blessed because he was there, much like Yosef. Yosef says that like Potiphar was blessed because Yosef was there. That was from Potiphar's own mouth. So there's some few things to get in here. Do you desire to join with those that Yahweh is blessing for the sake of joining with Yahweh? Or when Yahweh is blessing, do you look and become jealous, envious? How come I don't have that? Well, maybe you can, but you got to change your attitude, right? So let's look at a few things here. So we're starting in Genesis 26, starting in verses 12. We're going to go through 12 through 16, really. But first off, starting in Genesis 12 through 14. So Yitzhak planted crops in the land. Remember, it's a famine. And he reaped that year 100 times as much as he had sowed. And Adonai had blessed him. The man became rich and prospered more and more until he had become very wealthy indeed. He had flocks, cattle, and a large household. And look at this. And the Philistine envied him. See that? So it's not a matter of saying, this man is blessed by his God, blessed by Yahweh, and how can we join with this man? And how can we find out what he's doing? And what God does he serve? And all any of that? No. So they become jealous because of Yahweh is blessing him. And what they desire to do, they want to bless him? No. They want to join with him? No. They want to serve his God? No. They want to take it from him. See, that's what envy, jealousy, and strife, all of this. It's the kingdom of darkness. It's the way the kingdom of darkness operates. It's not the way Yahweh's kingdom operates. So what did they do? So we keep reading. Verse 15. So now the Philistine had stopped up and filled with dirt all the wells his father's servants had dug during the lifetime of Abraham his father. Avimelech said to Yitzhak, "You must go away from us, because you have become much more powerful than we are." See, the Philistines envied Yitzhak, and then they stopped up the flowing water. They stopped up the wells that Abraham had dug. And so when Yitzhak comes to the area and he's digging the wells, why would they stop up the wells? I mean, this is ridiculous, right? No, it's kind of like the idea of, well, we can't, if we can't have it, you can't have it either. You know, and it's like, no, you're becoming too prosperous to be among us. You need to get away from us. Now, granted, this would have been a good idea anyway, because they were jealous and envious of him. He doesn't want to get attacked, right? So, but they're pushing him out. Okay, they're pushing him out, pushing him away, because Yahweh is blessing him, and they're jealous. So they're pushing him out, pushing him away. And then we find, as we read, that they stopped up the wells that Abraham had dug. Really? What? It's just the mindset doesn't make sense, but yet this is the way the kingdom of darkness operates. But there is a spiritual lesson we learn here. The word for well is be'er, or the root word of it really is ba'ar, which means to dig. Now, when you want to get a well, what do? You dig. You dig a little bit? No, you dig deep. So the idea for this is also to dig or to engrave. And we also get the words to make something plain or to explain something thoroughly. So the idea here is that when you engrave into the earth, you go deep enough, you're going to hit water. And that teaches us a spiritual lesson, doesn't it? Because what are we made from? We're made from the clay of the earth, right? And so when Yahweh digs into us, he engraves his name into us, he's wanting to have that living water that he's putting within us to flow from us. But it happens by engraving or digging deep. I read this way as well, that he will take that heart of stone and give you back a heart of flesh. How does he do this? I believe by engraving his word in your heart. And that way he gives you back his heart. Not your heart, but with his word. Therefore, his. So you're engraving, much like engraving on stone or on tablets, like we had said. It's the same words that are used here. And what we learn is that you have an adversary who is trying to stop up the well constantly. He's trying to stop up the flow of the living water. He's trying to erase the engravings, if you will, to fill in the engravings to be undistinguishable. In other words, get rid of the word. Get rid of the word that Yahweh has planted within you, the word that he is engraving on your heart. He's trying to fill in those spaces, and it's like it's irrelevant. You don't need that, and whatever. No, we need to hear the voice of Yahweh, and we need to follow him and walk in his ways. Okay, we do that by hearing his word and walking in it. So what do we read? Let's keep going in verse 18. So Yitzhak dug again the wells of water that had been dug in the days of his father Abraham. The Philistines had stopped them up after Abraham's death, and he gave them the same names that his father had given him. So he digs these wells, and after these wells are dug, then problems happen. Problems come in, right? So he dug these wells, and his crops were blessed, and he has what he needs because Abraham made the way for him. See that again? We have a picture of someone who goes before you to help make a way for you. It's pioneering, right? But Yahweh has people go before us to make a way for us. He said he will send his comforter before you to make a way for you. All of this is biblically relevant, right? So he's digging these wells, and Yahweh is blessing him. And then the Philistines are saying, no, you can't be around here. You got to get out of here. Matter of fact, they start yelling. They kick him out of where they're at. And so he goes, in verse 20, we read, he goes to the herdsmen of Gerar. They quarreled with Yitzhak's herdsmen, saying the water is ours. So he called the name of the well Esek, because they contended with him. So this well is called Esek, which is strife or contention. Because they were quarreling with him regarding this well. So they're starting to move him all around. Okay. He digs a well. He gets water. No. That's ours. Really? We dug the well. But what did he do? Did he go to war over it? Actually, he didn't. He kept moving. Remember, Yahweh told him, you stay in this land and I will bless you. So he's moving around, but he's still staying where Yahweh said to stay. He says, you stay in this land. Don't go down to Mizraim. You stay in this land and I will bless you. So that's what he did. So he moved around, went to another spot. And so he finds quarreling and contention and strife. And actually, Esek also means a lawsuit, right? So they're bringing accusations and all these against him, which we see in the next well. Genesis 26:21. So they dug another well, and then they quarreled over that one also. So he called its name Sitna. Sitna is an interesting word because the root of the word Sitna is from the word Satan, which means accuser. And if you don't catch the inflection of the word, yes, Satan, right? That's where that word comes from. Sitna means accuser. And so now they're accusing him of what? Doing something false, no, that he dug the well. But they're saying, nope, that's our well. And so they're making false accusations against him about these things. And what does he do? Does he go up and does he say, now that's it? Them's fighting words, we're going to scrap, or no, this is my well and you know it. No, what did he do? He moved. He went on. Amazing, isn't it? To see how he was doing this. But Yahweh could have told him, stay put, stay exactly where you are and don't move from this spot. But that's not what he said. He said, don't go down to Mizraim, stay in this area, stay where you are, and I'll bless you. So he knew within himself, okay, I can go in and I can make war with these people in this area, or I can just move to the next spot, dig another well. Yahweh said he's going to bless me, so I'm going to get the water there, right? So he moves on. Now what happens? Verse 22. So he moved from there, and he dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called his name Rehoboth, saying, for now, Yahweh has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. I want to point out that he outlasted his critics, opponents, and accusers. He prevailed. And the word Rehoboth means wide open spaces or room enough. Okay, so now he's looking at wide open spaces, or now there is room enough for us. He went outside of where they said, no, you're too close, and get away. We don't want to see you. We don't have nothing to do with you. Go over there. Finally got to a spot where he said, okay, now there's room enough for us. But what happens next? Verse 23 through 33. I'm not going to read all that, but what happens in verses 23 through 33? Now his enemies, the ones who accused him and did all these things, now they appear for him, and now they're asking for his forgiveness and a blessing. So what does Yitzhak do? Turn him away and say, no, absolutely not. You kicked me out of my spot and you moved over here and you want something from me? You ain't going to get it, right? Is that what he did? No. What does he do? He made a feast and he restored covenant. That's unheard of, right? We wouldn't do that. It's exactly what he did. And this was at Beersheba, the well of the oath. So there he restored covenant and made an oath, and that's testifying, this is my well. And it was agreed upon. And then they moved on, right? So we find Yitzhak reopened the wells that was dug by Abraham. What did he find when he was reopening the wells? Let's go back, verses 18 and 19. Yitzhak reopened the wells which he had dug during the lifetime of Abraham his father, the ones that the Philistine had stopped up. After Abraham died, he called them by the names his father used for them. So Yitzhak's servants dug in the valley, and they uncovered a spring of running water. They uncovered Ma'im Chaim, living water, a spring of running, living water, fresh water. Wow. And this was what was needed, right? So there's some things we want to point out regarding living or fresh water. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 13, we read, my people have committed two evils. They have abandoned me, the fountain of living water, and they dug themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. Interesting thing about that is, would you rather have a well or a cistern? And really, if you can do both have their uses. Both could be needed, right? But a well gives you the fresh water, the running water, the living water, right? Cistern, you're not careful, it can leak or it can become stagnant if it does just sit there and hold the water. So there's a lot of care that's involved in that to make sure. What Yahweh is saying is that they should be going for the living water. The people should be looking for the living water, which was him. But instead, they turned away from him and they moved to their cisterns. And their cisterns wouldn't even hold water. Hmm. In Jeremiah 17:13 says, the hope of Israel, Adonai, all who abandon you will be ashamed. Those who leave you will be inscribed in the dust because they have abandoned Adonai, the source of living water. Where it says hope of Israel, the word hope is tikva, right? Well, the word used here is mikvah. Mikvah Israel. So what is the mikvah? A mikvah is a gathered body of water that is used for immersion, used for baptism, used to make something clean, right? And so what we have here is a picture of Yahweh saying that the people moved away from him, the source of living water, that he was their mikvah. He was the one that cleanses them and restores them. And if you move away the water, now what you have left is it dries up and becomes dust. And so it says their names will be inscribed in the dust of those who turn their backs on him. In John 7:38, Yeshua says, whoever puts his trust in me, as the scripture says, rivers of living water will flow from his inmost being. Also in John 4, verses 10 and 11, it says that Yeshua said, if you knew God's gift, that is, who it is saying to you, give me a drink of water, then you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. And she said to him, sir, you don't have a bucket, and the well is deep. Where do you get this living water? Who's the living water, right? We're looking to Yeshua. We're looking to the Comforter. We're looking to Yahweh giving us springs of life within us, right? Even in Revelation 7:17 says, for the Lamb at the center of the throne will shepherd them. He will lead them to springs of living water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eye. So again, we have a picture of living water being equated with restoration and life and good, right? And that's what Yeshua wants us to have. A living water, not just to wash over us, but flowing within us. And it's a picture of what he desires to do within us. So what we learn is that we have a responsibility to redig the wells that have been stopped up over time. People view things differently, but at our very core, we're the same. You know, the heart of man is sinful and wants to do their own thing their own way. But Yahweh is calling us to repent throughout all of that. So you're going to have people that are constantly going to be trying to stop the wells, so to speak, to fill in the wells, to stop the word of Yahweh from going forward. But you still have people proclaiming the word of Yahweh, walking the word of Yahweh, living the word of Yahweh, and these two are in opposition. What we need to do is we need to redig the wells, not going looking for other sources of water. Because what happens if you, okay, well, I know there's a stream over there, but I'm going to go try to find another source of water. That could be stagnant and diseased, but I don't want to make a way to try to go, work through this stuff over here to get that stream. I'd rather go find something else. Is that what we're supposed to do? No, we're supposed to go and search for the living water. Find the living water. Rediscover who Yahweh has called you to be. Even in a time of famine, hold on to the promise. Trust Yahweh and obey him. What happens if we do not redig the wells? If we don't redig the wells, we will not have clean, living water that we need. And if we don't have clean, living, running water, we're going to try to, ultimately, people will settle for whatever water they can get. Even if it's not clean, it's still water. They'll still take it. But what did that cause? See, are we looking for the water of life, or are we willing to have contaminated water? And that can do a couple things for us, especially in regards to who Yahweh has called you to be, in the sake of your identity. Your identity is who he created you to be. Washes off the ways of the world, the ways of this earth, right? The ways of the world, and washing that away and giving you a new life. Okay, so what can we learn about this? That is the living water of life with the new heart, with his word inscribed. That is your identity. That is the way he's created you to be. And for the sake of argument, let's just kind of define that word. Identity is a collective aspect of characteristics by which a thing is distinctly recognizable or known. The set of behavioral or personal characteristics by which an individual is recognizable as a member of a group. Look at this. The quality or condition of being the same as something else. Yahweh wants us to be like him, and he is the living water. He wants us to dwell in life and to walk in that, to be clean, to be restored, to walk with him in his ways, right? And if we're not willing to do that, then we can be contaminated sources of water. In other words, what does it mean to be contaminated? I'm going to say assimilated. That means we're going to go looking for water elsewhere. We're going to go look for the false, looking for the fake. If we're not turning to Yahweh for the source of living water, for the life, for the spiritual things that we need, then we'll start looking towards counterfeits. And then we will walk in the ways of the world and all these other things. We'll be assimilated. What does assimilated mean? Assimilated means to learn something that is fully understood and can be used, or to cause a person to become part of a different society or country, or to adopt the ways of another culture. And we're told throughout the scriptures not to do that. We're told in the scriptures not to learn the ways of the nations, but to walk with Yahweh and his ways, right? In Deuteronomy 18:9, it says that when you come into the land which the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominations of these nations. Deuteronomy 12:30 says, take heed to yourself that you are not ensnared to follow after them, or after they are destroyed from before you. And you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I will also do likewise. And in Leviticus 18:26, he says, you shall therefore keep my statutes, my judgments, and shall not commit any of these abominations, either any of your own nation or a stranger who dwells among you. And in Jeremiah 10:2, we read, do not learn the ways of the Gentiles, or do not learn the ways of the nations. Do not be dismayed at the signs of the heaven, for the nations are dismayed at them. So here's the thing. We are told in the scripture that we are to learn and to study and to teach, right? But where is the focus of all of that? What are we focusing on? Are we trying to learn and study and teach the ways of Yahweh? Or are we trying to learn and study all the things of what we're not supposed to be? Well, guess what? If that's what you're doing, then your focus and your time, effort, and energy is all going to be focused on looking at what Yahweh tells us not to do. Why don't we change focus and learn what Yahweh is telling us to do, learn his ways, and pass that on? See, that's the positive thing. That's what Yahweh's trying to do in our midst. If we're looking at what he wants to do in our lives, it's going to be good. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be all that. But if all we're doing is spending all of our time focusing on all the things that we shouldn't be looking at, well, it is true what scripture says. That which you continually look at, you're going to become like that. What you continually put around yourself, that's what you're going to be like. So make it his word. Make it the things that he says, right? In 2 Timothy 2:15, says, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. 1 Thessalonians 4:11 and 12 says, also make it your goal to live quietly, mind your own business, and work with your own hands as we instructed you, so that you may win the respect of outsiders and have need of nothing. And Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Again, now we're talking about you doing this, you following in Yahweh's ways, and teaching it to your children. We live in a society where, it's always somebody else's job to raise your children. No, it's your job to raise your children. And yes, people can help and teach and do all of these things, but that's to reinforce what they're supposed to be doing at home. Okay? Learning your morals and values and religion, all of these things, these should be taught in the home and not like taught. It should be lived in the home. So it's something that's done continually, right? And it's something that the children can see that it's important to you. See? Ephesians 6:1 through 4 says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. It's the first commandment with the promise that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. So how are we supposed to do that? Well, scripture tells us how to do that. Deuteronomy 6, we see portion from the Shema in here, right? Deuteronomy 6, verses 1 through 9 says, this is the commandment, the statutes, and the rules that Yahweh your God commanded me to teach you, that you may do them in the land which you are going over to possess it, that you may fear Yahweh your God, you and your son and your son's son, by keeping all his statutes and his commandments which I command you all the days of your life, and that your days may be long. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do them, that it may go well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as Yahweh, the God of your fathers, has promised you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Then he goes on, Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our God, Yahweh is one. And you shall love Yahweh your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your might. And verse 6, and these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. See that? Engraved in your heart, shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you arise. Verse 8, you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. See that? You can't teach what you don't know. You can't give something you don't have. So Yahweh has called us to be in relationship with him, but he's also called us to learn his ways and to walk with him in them. And as we do that, we will be teaching our children. You know, if we're sitting there and we are reading through the scriptures, our children are there seeing us do it, read it to them. You know, if you're praying, they come with you, pray with them. If you are listening to a teaching from somebody else and they're there with you, help explain it to them. What are you hearing? What's going on? And make it a part of everything that you do, because it's not just something you do, it's actually becoming a part of who you are. When the word is in you, it's being engraved within you, it's changing you, so that way it's becoming a part of you. It's changing who you are so that you will be more like the one that you serve, more like Yahweh. Okay, more towards what he is desiring for you. Okay, so we are to be planted, then we are to mature, and then we are to teach the next generation. We see this in Psalm 1, verses 1 through 3. It says, Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. For his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. And he is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and all that he does, he prospers. See that? So again, planted by streams of living water. So a tree that's planted and its roots go deep, and that water that's flowing through there, the stream of living water, it's going to benefit that tree. And it's all going to grow and become strong. And then it's going to be giving life to others around it. You know, giving shade, giving comfort, and giving life. If it's a fruit tree, it's going to give fruit, right? So all of this is what we're looking at. And we're going to grow and going to mature. And again, using the tree as an example, when you plant a tree, really it's not for you, is it? When you plant a tree, it's for your children, because it's not going to grow in its fullness and going to really be what it should be in like 5 years. You're planting it for the generations after, right? So what should we be? Well, we should be vessels for living water. We should be the vessels for a well of living water. Not a cistern that just pours water in and water just leaks through, or it's a really good cistern and it doesn't leak. The water just sits there, and if you're not careful, it can become stagnant. So what should we do? Do we want to be a well, or we want to be a cistern? Well, I want to be that river. Well, the wells tap into the river, right? So the well gives that source of life so that the people can draw from the well as they need the water. Cistern, it's good to have water there when you need it for do that. You can help with the crops and stuff like that. But ultimately and eventually, if you're not putting water in it, it's going to run dry. So that stream of living water taps into that well. That's what we want. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the living water to flow to us. We read, again, we read earlier in Revelation chapter 7 and in chapter 22, we read about this water of life, this living water that flows from the throne of God, that's healing for the nations and it's good for the people. All of this is things for us to learn from. That living water, that river of life that flows from his throne, what's that for? It's for us. And it's for us to share with others. So we do that how? We do that by digging the wells. How do you dig a well? You start just digging. So what do we mean by this? To get into the word. You start just by reading. You start a little bit. You just start reading. And then when you get some good areas that you're looking, you're like, oh, what does that mean? Well, then you dig a little more. You start to break it down, and then you dig a little more. You keep digging. Let that water come through you as you are digging into the word of life, that it gives you the water of life, right? Of course, we know that ultimately we're looking to Yeshua, who is the source of living water and leading us again back into the throne of Yah. So there's a lot to go in here, and once you start going through this, it kind of becomes a little cyclical. But that's what we're looking at, the wells of water, the wells of life, and all of this flowing together to give glory to Yahweh, because he gives us life, and in that we give him thanks, and we give back to him, and then he continues to bless. So again, it's all pictures of relationship and what he's doing for us. Okay, so guys, that's all we've got for you today. I pray that this has been a blessing for you. I hope that it encourages you. I hope it challenges you as well, and that we just learn the heart of the Father in the midst of all these studies. Okay, so until next time, be blessed, be a blessing, and shalom.